Oh, okay. There. Yay, we're live. Yay, hello. I'm so excited. Tonight we get to visit with Alisha Shelton, who is just an amazing woman all the way around. And I think one of the best things out of campaigning was meeting you and being able to, well, first of all, having another woman that understood what it was like to run in that race. And then also just getting to know you afterwards and seeing how just genuine you were through your campaign, and then that, you know, into our community, and just always being, I know after the George Floyd protest, I called you and I'm pretty sure I even cried, you know, and just the amount of support that you are able to give, even when you yourself are so overwhelmed. I just love that about you. So yay, thank you for being on here and for everything that you do. And so for those that are watching that may not be familiar with you, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Angie. You know that I am so happy to be anywhere where you are. And I love the relationship that we have built. And so I'm just excited to support you on your next venture and everything that you do going forward.
Oh, thank you.
So my name is Alisha Shelton, and I ran for U.S. Senate and up in the primary, ran for U.S. Senate with Angie Phillips, and her and I came in second and third place in the primary. And we had this little incident where we actually ran again. It wasn't our incident, it was somebody else's incident. And so Angie and I supported each other and kind of started a campaign up again. And that was honestly so much fun. It was so intense, but I also got to really learn your personality in a way that I hadn't when we were running in a race together. Even though we have never, I really was honored that we never had the stereotypical throwing jabs or cat fight or whatever people say, that we really were women running and women who also supported each other. And so that was really amazing. So I'm a mental health therapist by trade, out of Omaha, Nebraska. I utilize she, her pronouns. This is Pronouns Day. And so really excited to say that on today. And yeah, I'm just lucky and happy to be in Nebraska and be able to help our community.
Awesome. So what made you decide to run for office, and why did you start with the United States Senate? I'm sure you get asked that a lot. I know I did.
I'm sure you did too. I was going to say that. So, okay, so I decided to run for U.S. Senate because in the days that I was going to Washington, D.C. with my sorority and doing Delta days, my ideas were so big and I was so frustrated that I did not have one person, one representative in the U.S. Senate and Congress that was open or listened to me. So I felt that I represent a population, and also being a mental health therapist in Nebraska, I've learned to advocate for people who don't even look like me in situations that I've not been in. And I was really frustrated and became more frustrated that over the years, nothing changed. I was tired of doing letter writing parties and having that form letter sent to me. And so I really felt that in the US Senate, that was where I needed to be because my ideas were that grand and that big, and I wanted to unite us on that level. And so that's why I chose the federal level. Also because Mitch McConnell sucks, and all the bills that he withholds, that like really just frustrates me. And so I think that if we can become a nation that works together again, I don't think if you're a Republican, you're a Nebraskan and you're in Nebraska, you're still a Nebraskan. Like, I'm still going to work to advocate for you. I don't ask my clients when they come and sit in my chair what their party affiliation is. I just help them because they're here in front of me and they need that help. And so that was something that I really wanted to be able to do on that federal level. And so the straw that broke the camel's back for me is when I saw how much money Ben Sass takes directly and indirectly from the NRA. And then the following day, we had the shooting in El Paso. And then the following day, there was a shooting in like Ohio. And so that was just like, that was it for me, because I was tired of counseling people who don't feel safe, who have anxiety, who are afraid to go to school, to participate in like large soccer meets, etc. Now we're on the level where I'm counseling people who are doing horribly because of COVID. And once again, there are no federal packages coming, right? And so I just continue to be disappointed at how we are no longer loving each other anymore.
And you just started out with love in your campaign. And one of the things I tell people is like, I knew for sure that you were like genuine women support women. It might sound like a small thing, but we were at, I believe it was in York County. We had our first like little forum together. Yeah. And I had like a scratchy throat and I was like kind of, coughing, which back then wasn't as concerning as it would be now. But just from like lots of talking, you know how it is when you're campaigning. And you could have let me sit there and struggle, but instead you slipped me over a cough drop. And I was like, thank you. And I took the cough drop and it helped to the point where after that, I carried cough drops with me every time we went to speak. And I just thought, we were running against each other. You could have just let me struggle and, whatever, but instead you just supported me. And I thought that is just awesome. And you carried that all through your campaign. And then, even after your campaign. And when you talk about you wanted to represent all of Nebraska, I also know that that's genuine, because when we did restart up your campaign, I talked to you about how the rural revitalization was important to me. And if we could sit down and talk about that and talk about policy, and you were like more than happy to want to sit down and discuss that. And I think it's just so important that right now, especially where we're so polarized, that we do have representation that actually wants to help the people. Like, we can disagree on policy and still care about each other as humans.
Absolutely. And what I find is that I've never had a conversation where I disagree with someone and we've not been able to come to like an agreement or a compromise. Usually there's something, a piece I don't know about it, or, there's something that I'm like, okay, this is really important to you. Can you please share your perspective with me? Because I feel like I'm missing a piece and I don't want to miss that piece. I want to understand why this resonates for you and the manner in which it does. And usually people open up and they're like, here's the thing. And it's usually a story about family or about love. And I don't want to write a policy with like a specific structure in mind. I want to write a policy with people in mind and a family in mind, and someone who, is struggling. I can go off of people that I've counseled and spoke to and simply say, I know exactly what some individuals are dealing with because of what I've heard from them. And then my mother is just such a loving person. Period. Like, I think you met my mom, and she was like, hey, when you get in there, you better be taking Angie with you to the Senate, because you guys are working together. And so she just is kind of that person that has raised us to be that way, to be supportive of women and supportive of individuals and in general, wherever they arise as, or whoever they identify as. It doesn't matter. Like, my mom is that type of person where we don't let anybody go hungry. Like, we help out because that's what we do. And that's really like Nebraska nice. And so it's been easy. When you grow up that way, it's really easy to be that person as an adult.
Yeah, but I did meet your mom, and she is awesome. she definitely, you just feel very loved in her presence, and that's awesome. My mom is awesome too. So yay to strong women raising strong women.
Yes.
So what were some of the greatest challenges you faced during your campaign?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think one of the obvious ones was I felt that people often tried to put you and I against each other, like being the only women in the race, that I was always, hearing stuff that was not true. And that became frustrating. The other portion was just honestly, like in 2020, being a person of color, I experienced a lot that I didn't anticipate I would experience. And so having people tell me that they would listen to me because I looked polished or I was able to carry myself well. And I'm like, yeah, but most people do carry themselves well. I'm an adult. I'm a functioning adult, right?
Right.
And if I pushed on that, they would say, well, as a Black woman, you know, I've never met a Black woman, or I've never met a woman that looks like you, that talks the way that you do. And that can be a wow factor because, again, like in 2020, I totally anticipated to have some resistance, but not that blatant racism type of, you know, mentality and discussion about just like someone's comfort level and where they land. I was able to have a discussion with someone who just basically told me, like, it doesn't matter. I don't even know you, but because you're Black, I don't want to vote for you. And that kind of, in a weird way, was like, okay, so there's nothing I can do to change your mind. However, like this is your social norm. This is how you grew up, and I can meet you there. And I hope that one day you'll change your opinion, but you're likely not to do it. And so I will just continue on this mission. And if I meet someone who that is your social norm, I understand and I will respect you and I will still work for you. And you are entitled to your opinion. And so it was just trying to make sure that I stayed true to myself in those situations and true to, like we said, we talked about strong mothers raising us and kind of like, yep, like my mom has raised me and taught me about this. And I know exactly what to do in this situation. I'm still going to love them and we're still going to move forward. And so those were, I think, the most challenging pieces, the aspect of race and women being put against each other as if we can't work together.
Right. And I think that the men some of the men in the race saw us as their competition, and then tried to, you know, conquer and divide almost type of mentality. And it was definitely like, even when I went in a campaign, I was like, I knew that there would be sexism. I think what shocked me, or what I struggled with more, was like, we have a limited time to get our message out and across. And if we're sitting here calling out every sexist thing that is happening, we are distracting from that message every single day. So it really was kind of, I think that's why I found comfort, you know, when you entered, is because I was like, oh, and I can remember we'd be at forums, you know, and the guys would be going off and not listening to times. We were looking at each other like, oh, man, right? Or if we did that, we'd be called, you know, bitchy or aggressive or, you know, whatever. So, but then I guess there's two things I want to kind of go off of what you just said. I do want to acknowledge that when, after primaries, when you and I had more in-depth conversations and I heard some of the discrimination and racism that you faced, I guess I don't want to say that I was shocked, but it was definitely kind of this surreal feeling listening to your experience differing from mine, even though we were both running, we were both women running.
Yeah.
Clearly you faced barriers that I did not because of that. I also think that it was shortly after the primaries, I think you had posted something on your social media that I read that kind of addressed the fact that, you know, there were a lot of people that still, I'm sure you still hear it, I still see it, that say, well, we had two really great women running, but they split the vote.
Yes.
And that is an unfair statement, because there was four men running, and nobody ever talked about, well, they're splitting the vote. Why do women have to share this vote? You know, like, and I think that you stated it really well in that post after the primaries when you addressed that. And
I think the beauty is that we're two women with different experiences and different backgrounds, and so naturally we had different policies that we uplifted, although we do have some that overlap. So what I found most interesting was that with the men, many of them were contrasting. And I mean, there's one person that I know you and I can think of that was, oh my God, so opposite every candidate so just out left field, or whatever you want to classify it as. And nobody spoke about what his impact was with the other men. Nobody spoke about like how that could have been uniting the men or dividing them, or, what that did to their numbers. But obviously, literally, I think the night or the day after, I was getting people saying, well, you and Angie like split each other's votes. And I was like, no, we didn't. We're two different people. We ran two different campaigns. We are both strong women. We both let our voices be heard. We both were motivated in similar ways, but we're different. And so, no, we naturally would attract different voters based on that. And so I was really frustrated that people did not look at what we represented and what our platform items were, but more so our gender.
Yeah. That really disappointed me too, especially because I think that it kind of feeds into that idea that women are supposed to be competitive against one, or not to say competitive, but, arguing and against each other. And it just reinforces that thought system. And like, we all split the vote. All 6 of us split the vote.
And if we had ranked choice voting, then we would have been able to have a vote between like the top 3. So let's talk about our policies in Nebraska and changing it and making sure that everyone is represented, rather than trying to put 2 women against each other.
Right. Or let's talk about how 2 women were able to come in second and third, despite the fact that the winner of the primary, had been running for like 2 years longer, and had more name recognition and more. Like, I wish that people would have focused on what we did more than an opinion of how we may have harmed each other, because I don't feel that way. And I know that you don't feel that way. And I just, it's not just women that vote for women. I think that's part of the misconception. Like, men do vote for women. So what are you really proud of with your campaign? What do you think went really well?
Oh my gosh, I am proud that, I remember that I spoke to Jane Raybould, and this was, shout out to Jane, she's amazing. This was, I think, before the primary. And she is probably the only person who told me, stay true to who you are. Like, hey, the best advice I can give you is to be who you are. Like, don't try to step into shoes that aren't yours. Basically, like, when you run a campaign, you have so many people that give you their opinions. And sometimes it's hurtful, and they want you to do your hair different, or, it can be just your appearance. It could be something you represent. It could be that your policy is not up to their standard. And she basically said, be who you are, be true to who you are, and you will be happy. Like, run this campaign by honoring yourself. And I did that. And I think that was the best thing ever, that there's nothing that I said that goes against Alisha the person and what Alisha the person represents. All of my friends, all of my family, they understood my views. Like, it would, my mom was proud. There wasn't anything that I did where she was like, hey, that's not what you really believe, right? Like, I presented myself how I do when I go to events. Like, I didn't change anything different. I didn't think that I had to cut my hair or, like, do something different to my hair. And so for me, the thing that I'm most proud of is being true to myself and running my campaign. Like, I've run meetings at my jobs and led, supervised individuals. And so just being that person, to the point where before we would do any activity with our team meetings, I would check with individuals and say, do you have the capacity for this? Especially as we came closer to, the election, the primary in May. I would ask them, like, hey, we have this thing coming down the pipes. I know that the turnaround time is less than 24 hours. Do you have the capacity to do this? Like, where are you at? And we did a check-in every single meeting. It didn't matter if we were meeting every day at that point. Every single meeting, we did a check-in, because I really genuinely cared and wanted to know, if you have family in town, I'll take that on. Or, we're a team and we can work together. And so that is something that I think, and me being true to who I am, that I really loved about running my campaign.
I think that shined through too throughout your campaign. And that's part of what attracted people to you, is because they felt like you were being just genuine and honest, you know, and you had a way of really expressing, like, I'm human, you're human. I want to hear you. I want to work together. And it never felt fake. It never felt like you were being fraudulent. So I think that is something really impressive. Because you do get a lot of, you should do this, you should say this, you should wear this, you should look like this, you should talk like this, you shouldn't use that word, you should use this word. And sometimes you get it like, you know, I'm like, how did I just get 50 things saying what I should do, and I spoke for 3 minutes, you know, like.
Absolutely. And I would always be most impressed. Like, if you think about the candidate forum we had in Lincoln, I would always be most impressed with my performance and your performance. Like, those would feel the most genuine, right? And then I'm like, this person said this 2 months ago. He's lying right now. 2 months ago, his policy was completely different. And now today he's telling you a lie, and no one is busting him out, right? No one is saying, hey, buddy, you lied about this. But had that been me or you, they would have absolutely said, you're not being consistent with your policy.
Right. Yeah. If I'm to be 100% honest, I feel like the one thing I will always regret in my campaign, and I try not to have regrets, but I wish I would have busted some of them men out for some stuff. I think that it was, you know, complicated because, like I said, we're trying to get our message out. We're trying to focus on our policy and our issues. But I definitely wish that I would have busted some of them out for some of the sexism and racism and bigotries that they did display during that time. I think sometimes there's a lot of like, you want your team to be together, right? So you want the Democrats to all work together. And I know we both definitely campaigned and told people, like, if I'm not the primary winner, I will help the other person defeat SAS. Like, we understood the goal. Yeah. But God, how I wish if just one time when somebody said, you know, Chris was already in the race, why are you running now? I wish I just would have been honest and said, because he called too many women a cunt on his Facebook page. I wish I just would have said it one time.
Yeah.
So, but I never did. And then look where we ended up.
I do think that we never really had a forum for that though, Angie. Like, remember, we were supposed to debate, and then it was so many of us that they changed it to a forum. And so I think that if we would have had a setting to do that, it would have happened. But also, when you only have 3 minutes to give an answer to a question, you don't have time to talk about, and also this person answered it this way 2 months ago, and you also said this on, you know, whatever day.
Right.
And so that is one thing that I will honestly say, that I don't think that we had great opportunities to debate and to spotlight maybe what someone said that was contradictory or you know, inappropriate language. We weren't able to really highlight that.
Right. Especially for people like you and I that are, you know, we have policies. We had policies. We didn't have talking points that was sent to us from the NDP. We had actual ideas and policies of our own. And when you have that, it's really hard to just get that all out in like these, because you usually have 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 1 minute or, and then you're right. Like, and I'm definitely not faulting the Lancaster Dems. I so appreciate the work that they did in giving us that forum. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it would have looked a little bit differently if it wouldn't have been such a crowded race, and we would have been able to really work to individualize ourselves and actually be able to have those conversations. So thank you for pointing that out, because
I mean, and it could be something like in future races, like hopefully, like, you know, as active Democrats, we'll be able to create a venue or a forum where people can actually do that, right? Like, we only, before COVID, you know, COVID struck, so we only were able to do one candidate forum. But as you said, like, it's not at all a specific like Lancaster County or et cetera. We just didn't have a chance to build or to have that environment for people to actually get the knowledge, or really, have it right there shared in their face, where they don't have to take the time to do research on 7 people.
Right. So now that your campaign is done for this election cycle, unfortunately, what are your future plans?
So we will absolutely, definitely run for U.S. Senate again. Right now, I am so focused on helping down ballot candidates get elected. Every seat is important right now. School board, Douglas County Commissioner, wherever you are in your county, like the judges, every seat is important right now. And so I am doing my best to support various candidates, to donate, to make phone calls, to do anything I can to get them elected, because I think that that's important. I also have been trying to do some voter education with specifically the North Omaha community, and sharing about, hey, this is how you can get your ballot. There's this information. And so I think that that's right now what has been motivating me. Also, I've been working. And so, you know me, Angie, and I just have a heart for the people. And as I was restarting my campaign, I had the opportunity to take a job that was super flexible, and was like, we understand what you're doing. We'll go ahead and give you an offer. And just when you're ready to come and work, you can come and work. And so whenever you're free, like if that happens, although we hope also that you'll be on the ballot. And I was like, thank you very much. But in making phone calls, my heart was hurting for people when there was cuts to the unemployment, the extra benefit, when people are talking about, the fear of going back to school, when teachers are looking for a new profession, when there are people who are trying to help their students, their children do school from home, and it jeopardizes their own job. And so there was just so much that I was hearing that I was like, oh my God, I got to get out here. And I have to help people, and I have to counsel them, because that is what I can do. And so I have also been working and counseling, and there are just so many people that this pandemic is going on too long. People who have never, ever experienced depressive symptoms or suicidal thoughts are now having these thoughts. And so it's just a really difficult time for Nebraskans, for everyone right now. And I know before you and I even got on, we're like, we miss hanging out. We want to be social. We miss hugging people. There's all these things that we miss. And there's just so much work to be done. And so right now, I feel like I'm in the cusp of just trying to get people through COVID. Once our elections are done, I think I'll take some time and carve out what I want my path to look like, come back to the public, tell them what we're doing so everyone can get on board. But definitely in the future, we'll be running for U.S. Senate again.
That is awesome. I'm super excited about that. And I'm really excited that this time we get to team up from the start.
Yes.
So
that's right.
So, and I know that we chatted a little bit before about some of the candidates you were helping and pushing forward to get elected. And so shout out to Terrell McKinney.
Yes. Shout out to Terrell McKinney, LD11. He's running for Nebraska legislature. We also talked about Allison Hymas, who that you're also supporting too. Yep, 39. There's so many. We have Joe Giles, who is running for Douglas County. What am I missing?
Is it commission?
Commissioner, I feel like. Yeah. And so we have so many wonderful people that I feel like Justin Wayne is running unopposed. So, that is something that is really great right now. But yeah, there's just so many people that we can help.
Right. And then as soon as we get through these general elections, then we're on to city elections.
Yes.
Yes.
And mayor, because we definitely need a new mayor. Let's just start right there.
I am so excited about that. I am so ready. I'm like, let's just get November 3rd over with so we know what we're working with, and let's get on to city elections, especially after that. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched part of her press conference today on the police union contract, and I'm like, That was so not transparent. To say, well, we're working on it, and then come out and be like, well, it's done, and this is what we did. I was like, this is part of the problem, is you're not transparent through the process. Absolutely. Even though she knows how many people wanted it to be transparent process this time. So got to get a new mayor.
Absolutely, we do. Absolutely. And I'm excited for the individuals that are running for city council as well. And so it's you're right. It's interesting. It's like, get through this election and then we're going to be migrating and helping everyone in the next cycle.
Right.
To make sure that they get on the ballot and make it through the primary.
It almost was like elections never end sometimes, like, but they're important. So
we've got to get involved. We have to. Now is the time. I think if anything, in the wake of what's happened to George Floyd, James Scurlock, we definitely are understanding that we have some systems in Nebraska that just simply do not work, do not implement equality for all people. And if it does not do that, there are some significant changes that we definitely need to do.
Yeah. And I know that, like, during the final 17-day session of the Nebraska legislature, Senator Wayne had the legislation for community oversight. Because the session was so short, it didn't go anywhere. But I'm assuming that he'll be bringing that back this next coming session. And I know that Terrell McKinney does have some really awesome ideas when it comes to criminal justice reform, both with police reform and in the prison systems. So I'm hoping that we can get some good state legislation on that this year, because I don't feel like the city of Omaha has listened well at all about the needs and the pain that their community is suffering right now.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
So back to running though. So what ideas do you have that you think could, like, the community and the Democratic Party could do to better support candidates, especially women candidates and candidates of color?
I think that we need more transparency within the Democratic Party, right? And so I think that we need to have a list of, so there's already a list of how the Democratic Party can offer and support you. I think we need to have a workshop where it is clear exactly what they will do in an area where maybe in the SEC meetings where they are publicizing, this is what we've done for each candidate thus far. I also think that we need to work smarter and not harder and push for ranked choice voting here. I think that we need to change the laws around the sore loser law. That should never happen. I mean, you even have individuals, I think you and I, well, I don't know if you and I spoke about this, but individuals who are speaking about writing in a candidate on the Republican side because they're frustrated with Senator Sass. And so there needs to be law where if something happens and there's new information, we are able to take a vote and change who our nominee is. That doesn't make any sense. And I know that some people have stated that it's unconstitutional. And so I think that we need to make sure that we are working, candidates work with the Democratic Party and saying what they would like to see, especially those who have a history of running and know what the problems were. I think it is our job to now come up and say, I'm going to be involved. This is what I didn't see. This is what I would have liked to see. And how can we implement this? And so that first thing is, I think, transparency for me, knowing what every candidate is getting, because then you know it's equal. Then no one can say that you did one for this candidate in this same race and you didn't do it for this candidate.
Right. And I think I felt like sometimes there was so much concern about showing favoritism that sometimes just nobody got helped. Yeah. And I was like, it wasn't necessarily that I was asking for myself. I was asking for candidates. Like, this is something that would be helpful. And so I understand that there's kind of a sensitivity or a complexity to how much control the Democratic Party has in determining candidates and things like that. We definitely want to see it in the hands of the people, right?
That's right.
But like with this primary, the vast majority of Democrats at least those that are aware of the situation, do not appreciate the current candidate. And it just was ridiculous to me that he had so much control after that information came out about what he could or couldn't do, to the point where he damn near started running as a Republican. I mean, he basically is a Republican right now, right?
And was accidentally listed too on some places as a Republican. And so, I mean, what does that tell you? I absolutely think that it was brilliant for the Democratic Party to even create a code of conduct. I think that we need to be able to take it to the next level. And again, if somebody is a certain way, we need to be done with them. But I would also like to see us do a better job. And I don't know who this is. I don't know if this is community members or the Democratic Party. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But I would like to see a better job of conversations when there are 7 and 10 people in one race, right? Like if we are all Democrats, is this absolutely the best time for all of us to be on the ballot? Like some of us might have same ideas, like how can we come together and work together? There are certain cities that I think do a phenomenal job at this, and I don't think that we are one of them.
I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely those conversations should be had. And I feel like the Democratic Party does have a platform that is discussed amongst the Democrats statewide. You know, a lot of people spend a lot of time in deep, serious discussions about this platform. But then when you run as a candidate, it's like, you just have to have that D behind your name. And I'm like, I know some of you don't agree with this platform. Yeah. And then they're taking, you know, time away from people that actually do agree with the platform and are trying to get their message out. So I think that it would be helpful to definitely have some discussion around that.
I mean, and we have some certain people across races, all races, where some individuals were like, there's no way that this person is like a Democrat, right? Like you say you're a Democrat, but your policies are not following the national Democratic agenda, which is interesting because there was nothing that was done about that. And so maybe that's on us to say, hey, like, why are you in this race when you are not representing our agenda? Are you sure that this is your time to run? And so, yeah, I would love to structure a way for us to do that better.
Yeah. I think also to be able to get, I think you kind of mentioned like some of it is community responsibility. Like even now, like calling, you know, for different candidates that I'm supporting and stuff. Sometimes you talk to people and they're like Republican or Democrat and like, that's all they want to hear and then hang up. And it's like, but you can seriously register as anything you want to. So like, even if you sit with Republican values, don't you want to make sure that the person you're voting for has actual values that match yours?
That's right.
And I it's almost scary the way that we've kind of had that polarization and people aren't really, not everyone, but some people aren't really thinking for themselves and kind of looking into things for themselves, but they're kind of just following this party line. And I know that that's something that definitely concerns me because I think people are less likely to kind of research their candidate. And when Chris did all that stuff and it came out, like I was shocked that he put it in writing while he was the primary winner, but I wasn't shocked about the behavior, you know? And I know that the Republican Party has hit Jane pretty hard with saying, you know, like she knew about it. And then they posted that timeline of like all of the times that Chris had said stuff. And they were trying to pin that on Jane. But I'm like, really, we all hold a responsibility for that because that was visual to all of us.
I mean, and he received several endorsements, right? And so it's either you did a good job presenting yourself as one way and not being that way, or we didn't take the time to do our research. And so I absolutely agree. And I really, I think that our community also needs to be involved within the Democratic Party so that we can have really great ideas and ensure that we tie it to a source to where most people come when they are Democrats, because we do have a large amount of nonpartisans in our state. And so if we are going to say, let's come together and have a conversation and make sure that we have the right people, like let's vote on, let's actually join the party. Let's actually create a template or vote on rules and policies that will help us be able to do this.
Right, because it really can be a party of the people, but people have to participate.
That's right. People have to participate. And so check out your district. We have openings on the SEC committees. We are looking for delegates and alternates within the Democratic Party. And so please go to nebraskadems.org.
I think it's .org.
I think it's .org. If you know your district, if you have any questions, reach out to Angie or myself, because we would love to hear your voice and make sure that your voice is being uplifted.
Right, because it's those delegates of the party that get to vote on different party policies. So if you really want to have a voice in the party, then that's how you get it. And I saw you've been pushing it on social media. I know that the Douglas County Democratic Party Women's Caucus has been pushing too. Like, if you want to change the party, I mean, because like I've mentioned a gazillion times that I'm not a fan of the two-party system, and that you know, my loyalty is to the people, not the party. And that doesn't mean you hate the party, you don't respect the party. It just means that's where your loyalties lie. And yeah, I think that if we could get more people actually in the party, and then as those of us that are in the party, if we could be more welcoming and make sure that it's a more inclusive and welcoming environment for newcomers, I think that would be incredibly helpful too. Because I know when I first went to go into the party, it was like, here's bylaws and here's this constitution and here's this bureaucracy. And I was like,
yeah, I mean, it can be really overwhelming, right? But I have a really, again, coming from a strong background, I have a mother who's kind of like, don't complain about it if you're not going to chip in and change it, right? Like, don't talk about this system, Alisha, if you're not going to take the time to research it, learn it, and then change that system. Like, if you don't like what's happening, then you have to be involved in it. And that's the oldest, well, for me, I've been hearing that since I've been growing up. So for me, it's like, that's the age-old kind of like common sense factor that goes across time. Like right now, as we are looking at changing various systems, also, if the systems that you are not in favor of or need to be changed, like get involved in that system.
Right. And right now it's actually even easier because most of their stuff's on Zoom.
Absolutely. You don't have to drive. And then you can also, if you are curious, you can go to Nebraska Democratic Party's Facebook page and watch prior meetings, because they've live streamed all of them. And so it's so easy to access.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And they have some great caucuses too. I think I enjoy the caucuses the most out of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's the Women's Caucus, the Secular Caucus, the Stonewall Dems,
yeah,
the
there's
Rural Caucus, the Black Caucus, the Latina Caucus.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of caucuses.
The Nebraska Young Dems, we have to shout them out because they're some of my favorite people.
Oh yeah, and they're so motivated. They're
right.
Really good caucus, and they know. I mean, talk about someone who can help you with technology.
Right. Right. And creative ideas. I remember when I was campaigning and COVID hit, right? We're all searching like, oh my God, what do we do to try to get, our messages out and stuff. And so I'm like, doing what we're all doing. I'm hosting some town halls virtually and things like that. And then I'm like streaming through once, and like some of the young Dems in Kearney are having like a, was it a hot pepper eating contest, or I can't remember. And then like once they like cooked a steak in like hot water to see if they could get it up to temperature. I was like, where are these ideas? So
I love it.
Yeah, I totally love them. And I'm like, I just look at them like, oh, thank God you're here. Like, I feel like that my daughter tells me that the reason that Gen Z is so motivated is because they watched their parents not get the promises that we thought we would have, they watched us struggle. So she's like, we don't have the same level of hope as you guys had. We know we need to get in there and change stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, oh. I'm like, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for getting in because we need you in.
We need you in. We've been trying. I'm sorry. But, all right, we got some comments.
Okay.
We got some love. We got some, you're both awesome women. And it's just such a drag that the politics of this situation were so dreadful. Some thank yous. Oops, I pushed a button. It says we need to be prepared for the volatility in the next 90 days through the presidential inauguration. How are you feeling about the elections? Not so much as like, winning. Hopefully we're all feeling like Biden will, pick it up. But I guess, how are you feeling? I have concerns. I think most people are feeling afraid, regardless of which way it goes.
I think that full transparency, like the therapist in me is just trying to be as distracted and as busy as possible so I don't check into how I feel. But that is my feeling. My feeling is I don't think that we can call it a win until every vote is counted. I think that this election is going to be the most, first of all, we know what happened in the last election with oh my God, with Hillary and Trump and oh my God. Like I can't even get the words out because the amount of people that I counseled that day, that week, because President Trump won was mind blowing. I mean, we were stacked with clients in the state of Nebraska. We were stacked with people who were very triggered by this individual taking office. And so right now, I am fearful. You and I have talked that I've done IVF. And so I have 2 embryos that I will be looking at getting a gestational carrier once we're all done with helping people. Like, so we're thinking next year. But hearing the Supreme Court justice, like I am so fearful of, will I have the ability to do that? Will I be able to access my own embryos? Because you are coming for everything. You're coming for equality, our friends in the LGBTQ plus community. You're coming for women's rights. Now you're coming for like IVF and modern medicine and science when our own president received treatment for modern medicine for COVID. So it is such a really stressful period right now. And everyone that I talk to, I feel like is also on pins and needles. So that is the difficult part, that we are all just literally waiting to see what happens. And in the meantime, I'm pushing everyone I know. I cannot tell you how many times I've talked to people about their voting plan. Did you vote? Did you submit your vote? You didn't get your ballot? Go in person and vote. That you can totally do that and ask them where it's at. And I'm not even talking about in the state of Nebraska. Outside of Nebraska, I'm even doing this. We're sending screenshots to people. Hey, got my ballot in, did you? There's so many things that I am just trying to make sure that we mobilize, because you can feel the tension. You can feel how people are so worried about what's actually going to happen. So that's the hard part. Like, I haven't even been able to foresee, like, is this person going to get out of office? Like, what is going to look like the 90 days after the election? Because I'm so stuck on the portion of get everyone to the polls. Everyone I know needs to vote. And 3 other people that they know need to vote.
Right. And I definitely think that definitely keeping that kind of just busy. Like, yes, we're not going to worry about it because we're going to work on it right now. But that's still in the back, it's in the back of your mind. Yeah, in the back of your mind. And I think, what you said about we're not going to know, like, every vote has to be counted. I agree with that. But then even that makes me nervous, because I'm like, with this administration, if you give them any kind of time to put out disinformation, so hopefully we will get those votes counted quickly and accurately.
I am hoping that whatever individuals believe, I am hoping that RBG helps us out from the other side with the Supreme Court justice and with the president in a presidential race. And I'm just like, because it's going to take, I feel like I need divine intervention plus everybody voting, right?
Right. Right. Well, it's ridiculous kind of the way it works out. Because, like, right now, so Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes, right? Which we all can't forget.
No,
but then in the U.S. Senate, the majority party, the Republicans, represent like 15 million more or less people than the minority party of the Democrats. So when you start thinking of those numbers, it's like, it's not like we just have to win by a couple votes, we got to really get out there and win in significant large numbers to make sure that we win the presidency.
And the one thing that is inspirational is if anybody is tracking U.S. Senate races, we have a good 12 seats that Democrats are positioned to flip. Like more than like we needed, 2 or 3. Now we are really in hot areas, like doing such a good job where even some the Republican committees are moving out of certain places because they're like, oh, this far ahead, like Hickenlooper, right? Like all these individuals, and that gives me hope. So looking at those numbers, I'm like, okay, we can actually get Jamie Harrison in office. We can actually get these individuals, and that will flip the Senate. And so I'm hoping because we are able to do that, that we will get Vice President Biden elected. And so I'm just again, like I said, trying to distract myself with what can I do right now so that when the election day occurs, I feel like I have done absolutely everything possible to make it go in my favor. And that's very, but that's what it is.
Hey, I feel that because there's a memory of election from 2016 that haunts me. And I have a friend from back home that had texted me like the night before elections or something like that. And she was like, hey, I know she doesn't like Trump, right? But she was also questioning Hillary, right? And so, I said something like, well, I mean, Trump's been accused of sexual assault this many times, and he's clearly bad for women, and he's clearly racist. I was like, do what you do. And then I sent her a picture of like the poll map that showed Hillary was just going to kill Trump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in my head, it was just like, we got this, and never again. Now I kick myself in the ass. I should have been like, no, go vote for Hillary because you never know what kind of
right. And there's so much voter suppression. I think that's the other factor that we have to look at. All of the cities that are having forms of voter suppression, even here today, like Justin Wayne shared and the ACLU shared that there were individuals that the Secretary of State of Nebraska accidentally sent information to voters saying that they were ineligible or something happened to their status, right? And so now we have X amount of people, and to 23rd, that's Friday. So Friday is the last day for you to register to vote in person. So all of these people who thought that they were ineligible now have essentially, let's throw out today, 2 days to show up and register to vote in person because they can no longer do it online and participate in the election. And so that is the portion that is like that piece that we are unsure about. And it's frustrating. We can't even get the Voting Rights Act that they renamed as the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We can't get that to clear the Senate. So there's just so much.
And they're such gaslighters too. They'll be like the minute they say the Democrats are doing this, I'm like, that's what they're going to do. That's exactly what they're going to do because they're saying we're doing it. So it's definitely hypocritical. So, so we got a couple more comments. So Andy says, I just recently registered Democrat only because I wouldn't be able to vote on local elections if I didn't. I was registered as independent for a long time. He says he's in Kearney. Well, welcome to the party. I think technically we do let nonpartisans vote, right? But I guess I don't know how that works with city elections.
I don't know with city, but I think that every nonpartisan, I don't think I know if you're nonpartisan that you can ask for a Democratic ballot. You have to ask for it when you go to vote in person.
Yeah. Not not to disturb you from the party. In fact, stay a Democrat. You're in Kearney. I'm sure we need some LDs out there. You're exactly the type of person we would like to recruit. They say it's so refreshing to see two people that ran against each other be so open and caring, separating their love for the people and the wet concrete of politics. You two are a model for unity. We just need to get this going on a bigger scale. Aw, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that one of the things that was good, I mean, for me, it's just been great to know you and become your friend and all of that. But I think that with all of the stuff that did happen with the U.S. Senate race, at least folks that are disappointed with the candidate that currently is there, they, through us coming together, and then both of us, you know, once we couldn't get Chris to step down, turning our support towards Preston Love, I think there's at least a story of hope here and a story of goodness and what Democrats can be and should be. I also just think it has a lot to do with the fact that we're both women. And I think that we could teach men a lot about how to compete on the same team.
Absolutely.
All righty. Yeah, so it's almost 7:00, so I'm doing a meeting this evening later actually on deep canvassing efforts.
Ooh.
So I've been researching the deep canvassing, and I think that if we could spend between now or, you know, after these elections up till next election, deep canvassing areas on things like reproductive rights, immigration, racial injustices, and things like that, then maybe those conversations will help us get people elected.
I hope so. I love that idea, and I would love to support it, whatever I can do to help.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll keep in touch. So, and I can't wait. I wish COVID was not a thing, because I would just love to get in a room together with you and everybody else and just actually be together. But it's good to see your face and to hear your voice and to talk to you. And I can't wait until we can do it in person.
Well, it's good to see you too. And I will tell you that I am looking forward to when we can do it in person. It's going to mean 10 times much more. It's going to be explosive because we've had to wait this long. And hopefully we will be celebrating our next president of the United States to be someone who's currently not in the White House. Hopefully,
because if we want to get out of COVID, we need to elect somebody else.
We do.
This guy's running around saying he's got COVID, maybe does, maybe doesn't. He's got no mask on. He's spitting on people.
And then your wife is struggling, and here you are going from place to place, and Melania can't get the magical cure too. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah. So, all righty. Well, you have a good night, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching. It was so great connecting with you, Angie. Have a good night and a great meeting.
Thanks. You too. Good night.
Good night.